Three, two, one, and you're live.
Surgical recovery, I sort of became an expert and interested in oxidative stress and how that influences health and well-being. So that kind of parlayed into me looking into how your aesthetic and your health relate to one another. And I often talk about an entity called beauty span, which is the sort of concept of your self-image and your aesthetic being a lifetime endeavor, and not something that's applied from outside, but something that comes from within. And the idea of health relating to beauty and vice versa, and the two being very closely related. So in that regard, my plastic surgery practice has now grown. We're part of a group, and we're building a clinic in Toronto, Canada, which includes both aesthetics, surgical, plastic surgery, but also healthy longevity, men's and women's health, and all integrated into one center where we hope to be able to address every need of a patient, from the outside and from the inside.
Wow. Okay. So how did you come to the space or to the conclusion that the way when someone looks better, obviously they feel better, but how did that go into the longevity space?
That's a great question. And, I get asked things like that a lot because, I think the longevity space in general has tried to separate itself from a lot of mumbo jumbo and confusion in the industry, and in that has also separated itself from the aesthetic industry. And I think that's been a mistake. And I think it's really important to embrace the aesthetic industry because the people who have engaged in that industry are all people who care about themselves. They want to take care of themselves. And while that initially manifests as an interest in how they appear, it actually means that they want to take care of themselves. And that's a client, that's a person who you can engage with and teach them how to actually look better by being better and healthier inside, not just by applying needles and knives on the outside. And so that really related to how can we help people be more beautiful, not just look that way.
Got it. So you said you come from a plastic surgery background. So
yes.
I guess before someone has to get to the point of plastic surgery, what preventative measures do you see that they can take before they even get to that point?
That's a great question. And so, I mean, the assumption in that question, which I totally agree with, is the idea that surgery has a role, but it is not the primary. It is not the thing that people should be given at the outset. The real way that we should be looking after how people appear is, first off, looking after whole organ, entire body health. And of course, a big part of that is your skin. Everyone talks about how skin is the biggest organ in the body,
right?
But people often forget about how important it is. I mean, it has so many different functions, and it is also the organ which is exposed to among the highest levels of oxidative stress in your entire body. And so, skin cell senescence, oxidative stress in the skin, all of these things manifest as true, health issues that people experience. So, the real way to manage somebody's beauty is to manage all those things at the outset. Get someone's, immune status up to date. Get them on the proper diet, healthy lifestyle. The pillars of healthy longevity are also the pillars of beauty and aesthetics. And if we can coach people to have the appropriate lifestyle and approach things from that dimension, that gives us a good foundation. And then from that, we can apply other things. I mean, there are autologous stem cell therapies that are available.
Wow.
There's regenerative medicine, and all of these are therapies that can be added on top of a proper, foundation for a patient. But I think that the very principles of healthy longevity are the same principles of beauty span.
Wow. Okay. So basically, you feel better, you look better, and those tend to be the people that also are interested in longevity anyway. So you mentioned skin earlier. I'm curious. So what are some things that you'll see in your skin that is telling you that maybe you need to change your lifestyle?
Yeah, absolutely. The skin is a window to your body. Inflammation in your system manifests very much on the skin. So, people develop rosacea and erythema and redness on their skin as they age. And in some fashion, it's assumed that this is just a normal part of aging, but it's not. It's, part of both chronological aging and photoaging. The sun, exposes people to that same sort of accelerated. So inflammation of the skin tells you that there is something going on. And often that's a manifestation of issues with the gut. Imbalance in our gut microbiome will very quickly manifest as skin inflammation. Similarly, pigmentation disorders. A lot of people have excess pigmentation or vitiligo, inadequate pigmentation or hypopigmentation. Those are all manifestations of systemic inflammation and oxidative stress. And so again, if you can manage somebody's oxidative stress, you can actually treat a lot of pigmentary disorders, including really challenging things like vitiligo and melasma. These are things that vex even the very best dermatologists, and yet the foundational sort of functional root cause of these things comes from within. And a lot of traditional physicians actually don't recognize that and ignore the fact that these systemic things manifest on the skin. So if you want to fix your skin, eat a better diet.
That makes sense. It starts with the gut, right?
Yep.
So since you're telling me, I'm not sure your profession is fairly new in the longevity space, but how many of you are there advocating for this right now?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's few in the aesthetic space. There are a handful of people who are starting to speak about the idea that we do more than just cut patients. We do more than just inject them, but there's not many of us, and it's a growing space. Again, I really think it's important that the longevity community embrace this rather than distancing and separating us, simply because we have the patients. The people are already walking through the door into our aesthetic clinics. They're coming in for Botox. They're coming in for a microneedling or a lip filler. And while those are not necessarily the goals of what we want to deliver to those patients as healthy longevity physicians, but that brings people through the door. That's a driver. And a lot of longevity clinics struggle with bringing people in. It's how do you engage? How do you get the market to come to you? In the aesthetic realm, we already have those patients. The key, though, is that we have to transition those patients and teach them. You shouldn't be just coming in to get a Botox treatment. Yeah, okay, those are good things to do, and there's absolutely reasons and benefits to doing those things. But at the same time, once you're through the door, we can engage you. We can get you involved in your AI-driven digital platform, looking at your digital twin. We can test your microbiome. We can do your epigenetic testing, and then tell you these are things that are manifesting the oxidative stress or inflammation of your skin. This is the way that they're manifesting, rather than just treating with a Botox. Why don't we reduce the number of wrinkles in your skin by thickening your skin, getting you some more collagen, reducing the inflammation that's actually reducing the thickness of your skin in the first place. But we have those patients coming in already. We just need to find the right way to engage them and turn them onto that healthy longevity path.
So it's not a question of if you're trying to convince people, well, in the longevity space that they start with you. Well, a lot of them are coming to you anyway. It's about convincing them as well that this isn't the only solution.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's absolutely true. And of course, a lot of patients at the outset, they are looking for healthy longevity. They want to be well, and they'll walk into a clinic asking about that, but that's not the majority. Most people, they need to engage with something that they can see, something that's tangible. And their skin and their overall aesthetic absolutely is very tangible to them. And so if you can get them a quick win with that, if you can address something that bothers them when they look in the mirror, that win then becomes the next change, the real impetus towards them changing their habits and their lifestyle to make meaningful long-term changes for themselves.
It really does. You're right. Every person is kind of vain in their own way, because it really does start. You wake up, look in the mirror like, oh, I did not look like that before. What's going on with me?
You know what? I think that the term vain is a fascinating one, because there's not a lot of words in the English language that have a definition and also a moral judgment attached. But vanity is absolutely one of those. Being vain is perceived as a very negative quality.
It is, yeah.
I would turn it around. I don't agree with that at all. I think vanity is absolutely a core fundamental human value. We all take care of ourselves and how we look to different extents and in different ways, whether it's from the clothes that you chose to put on this morning, or the way you trim your beard, or for women, the makeup they choose to put on, or their hairstyle. Those are all things that manifest how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem. That very much is a part of your relationship with yourself. I mean, we've heard lots of people talk about how relationships are so crucial in healthy longevity. Dean Ornish has talked to us about the loneliness epidemic. Your relationship with yourself is the first and most important one. I mean, RuPaul says it best: if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else?
Right.
So that starts with how you appear, because looking in the mirror absolutely is something we all do. The next part of that, of course, is our social interactions. The very fact that we are social creatures and everything we do every day involves interacting with others, your perception of yourself and how you appear is a tool and how you interact socially.
Yep.
So addressing these aesthetic things, I don't see that as vanity. Rather, I see that as this is a core tool of how we exist as humans, as social creatures.
Kind of an indicator to ourselves of how we're living and how we're moving forward with our lives. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. So what are you looking forward to most right now?
You know what? I'm looking forward to the explosion in our space. I mean, this is my third visit to the Roundtable.
Okay.
And I've seen each year as it's grown. I've seen each year as we've gained more specialties, more interest. I'm really I'm so excited for the industry. I'm very excited to see the aesthetic industry changing. Because my career of 18 years or so being a plastic surgeon, I've watched our industry do a lot of harm to people. And I love plastic surgery. I love what I do, and I love making a difference for people. But I look around and I recognize that there are a lot of people who have been harmed with overdone, inappropriate procedures, and the idea that if someone comes to a surgeon and asks for something, that they should just be given what they ask for, not that there is a clinical decision making or a thought of what's appropriate for this person. I don't like the aesthetic industry and what is done. Having said that, the excitement I have right now is a recognition that there is now a merger. There is a nexus of the aesthetic and this healthy longevity coming together, where we can actually help people, be better and healthier, and not just looking better. So I see a revolution in the aesthetic industry. We absolutely need to change how we treat patients, and I think that revolution is here.
Where I like the idea that you're saying, instead of someone going in and just saying, "Hey, I need this," or "I want this," you'll have somebody being like, "Hey, do you actually need this? Do you are there other steps in your life that you could take that will help you achieve this? Will help you achieve looking better anyway?"
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And what are a couple takeaways that you've got from this specific roundtable, the third annual?
So many takeaways. I always love hearing Dean Ornish speak. He's a spectacular speaker. This year, Dr. Ellen Langer from Harvard, her talk, the way that thought and perception influences somebody's health, that was a really a pivotal moment. I really enjoyed that lecture very much. And at least part of it is because of how that relates to what we've been talking about, and how they perceive themselves and their self-esteem reflects truly in their health and their health metrics. So I mean, that was a big takeaway for me. I really enjoyed that lecture. I'm going to most certainly be watching it a few times more. Also, I think a responsible tone. Yesterday we learned a lot about biomarkers and some of the ups and downs and inconsistencies. So I really recognize the importance of improving regulatory and standards of care, so that when we apply biomarkers and testing for patients, we're doing it in a consistent and data-backed way, not in a random haphazard way. And to that extent, I'm a big fan and very strong supporter of Andrea Meyer and all the work that she's doing with the Healthy Longevity Medicine Society to create that framework of regulatory and standards of care. So I think that's another really big thing that's going to be changing in the next year.
Nice. It's like it's progressing really quickly, everything, man. So where can we find you? Where can we find your clinic and all that you're doing in the longevity?
So my healthy longevity site, it's called beautyspan.com.
Okay.
And our clinic in Toronto is under Form, Face and Body. You can find my personal website at drcoreygoldbergmd.com.
Nice. So good talking to you, man.
Likewise, Aaron. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, guys. That was the Better by the Numbers podcast, wrapping up with Dr. Corey at the third annual Roundtable of Longevity Clinics. Thank you so much for joining us.